Two female DEA agents went missing in Washington state while looking into smuggling across the border. Where they were last seen was a mystery for 8 long years. Then, a mining crew checking out a cave system found signs of the missing agents. In a flooded part of the cave, this discovery proved that everyone had been completely wrong about what happened to them. The loud ring of his phone woke Marcus Rivera up at exactly 8 a.m., pulling him from the bad dreams he'd been having for the last 8 years. His hand searched on the nightstand in his Seattle apartment, knocking over a water glass before he found his phone. The caller ID showed his boss from DEA International Operations. Director Patricia Thornton never called this early unless something important had happened. "Rivera," he answered, his voice rough with sleep. "Marcus, I need you to sit down if you're not already." Director Thornton's voice had a seriousness that woke him up fast. "We have a new development in Elena's case." His sister's name hit him like a hard hit. 8 years of questions with no answers. 8 years of wondering if she was dead or alive. 8 years of feeling guilty for not being there for her. Marcus held the phone tighter, his knuckles white. Carl Hendress and his mining crew were looking for minerals in an old mine shaft system near the Canadian border. Thornton went on. They found a white Ford F-150 through a hole in the cave's ceiling. "Marcus, the truck's number matches Elena's." Missing truck. The room felt like it was tilting. Marcus made himself breathe and understand what he was hearing. The truck, ... It's definitely theirs. The team on site confirmed it. The truck seems to have fallen or been pushed through the hole above, landing in a partly flooded cave below. "I'm sending you the location now. Local crime scene investigators are already there, but I wanted you to hear it from me first." Marcus was already putting on his clothes, the phone held between his shoulder and ear. "How long has it been down?" "There? Any signs of ... Double quotes, he couldn't finish the sentence. "That's one of the worrying parts," Thornton said carefully. "Even though it was supposedly underwater for 8 years, the first report says there is very little rust or water damage. The lead crime scene investigator thinks it may have been put there much more recently than when they first disappeared." What this meant sent a chill down Marcus's spine. If the truck had been moved recently, it meant someone had been covering their tracks all these years, someone who might still be around. He threw his D jacket over his shoulder holster, grabbing his badge and ID and car keys. "I'm heading there now." "Marcus, I know this is personal, but you need to stay professional. We're treating this as a possible crime scene, not just getting the truck out." Understood, but they both knew he was lying. Nothing about Elena's disappearance could ever be just a job for him. The drive north took him through a thicker Washington forest. The city of Seattle turned into tall, evergreen trees and winding mountain roads. Marcus had driven this way many times in the months after Elena and her partner, Sarah Collins, went missing, following every lead, checking every report of someone seeing them. They had been looking into suspected smuggling paths along the border. Their last check-in had been normal. Just another watch operation and a career full of them. The GPS led him to a gravel road that wasn't there 8 years ago. Orange cones and cars marked the temporary command post set up at the cave entrance. The scene was busy with activity, crime scene teams in white suits, local police keeping people away, and the serious and well-practiced work of people who dealt with death all the time. Marcus parked and walked up. The lead crime scene investigator, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes behind safety glasses. She introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Lindstrom. "Agent Rivera, I was told to expect you," she said, her voice a mix of professional and kind. "I want to prepare you for what we've found." They walked toward a tent that had been put up near the cave entrance. Inside, 3 body bags were on tables. "We found 3 bodies from the cave so far," Dr. Lindstrom explained, using on-site ways to identify them. We've confirmed one victim as Agent Sarah Collins through her dental records and her D badge, which was still on her. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Sarah had been Elena's partner for 3 years, a good agent with a young daughter. Cause of death. Dr. Lindstrom led him to a laptop showing x-rays. This is where it becomes a clear crime. Agent Collins shows signs of being hit hard on the head, injuries that don't match a car accident or a fall. The marks suggest she was hit on purpose with something heavy. This changes our whole investigation from missing people to murder. The other 2 bodies, both women, have broken down a lot. No matches in missing person files yet. We're running DNA and checking with police in Canada as well. She paused, looking at Marcus's face. Agent Rivera, I need to be clear about something. We've checked the truck and the cave area around it very well. Agent Elena Rivera's body is not among those we found. The words hit him with a mix of relief and new fear. If Elena wasn't in the cave with Sarah and the truck, what had happened to her? Had she gotten away at first, only to die somewhere else? Or, and this thought scared him more than anything, had she been taken alive? Dr. Lindstrom showed him the truck through the hole in the cave, using strong lights to light up the cave below. The white F-150 sat partly underwater, its D logo still easy to see. Seeing it brought back memories of Elena proudly showing off her new work truck. The small amount of water damage is strange, Dr. Lindstrom continued. This cave system floods with the seasons. If the truck had been here 8 years, we'd expect much more wear and tear. Our first thought is that it's been here 6 months, at the most. Marcus looked at the list of recovered items one more time, hoping he'd missed something, that Elena's name would be on the list somewhere. But she was still not there. A ghost who had left behind only questions and a partner's body. As proof of violence, we're making the search area bigger, Dr. Lindstrom promised him. If there are other bodies in caves connected to this one, we'll find them. But Marcus knew from 8 years of looking that some people didn't want to be found. And some secrets were worth killing to keep hidden. He stared at the cave opening, wondering if Elena had looked up through that same hole in her last moments, or if her story had gone on beyond this dark hole in the ground. Either way, Sarah Collins's murder proved one thing: his sister and her partner hadn't just gotten lost or had an accident. They had been singled out, and their killer had worked very hard to hide the proof. The Cascade Ridge Motel looked like something from a long time ago, its faded neon sign blinking on and off. In the gray afternoon, Marcus pulled into the gravel parking lot, feeling a deep tiredness that was more than just physical. The emotional stress of seeing Sarah Collins's body and facing the violent truth of what happened to his sister's partner weighed on him. Director Thornton had been clear on the phone. Take the required rest time, Marcus, for hours minimum. That's not a request. D rules were there for a reason. Agents who were too emotional made mistakes and got themselves or others killed. He knew she was right, but every moment away from the case felt like he was letting Elena down. The motel room smelled of strong cleaner and old carpet. Marcus put his gun on the nightstand. Then the pile of case files he'd grabbed. 8 years. Of reports and dead ends that he knew by heart. His hands shook as he opened a water bottle. The shaking wasn't from the cold or hunger. It was a mix of adrenaline and sadness. Seeing that truck, knowing Sarah had died violently while Elena was still missing, had broken the small bit of comfort he'd found in not knowing. He had just taken off his jacket when a strong knock came at the door. Through the peephole, he saw a police officer. Marcus opened the door, blocking the view of his gun. "Can I help you?" "Agent Rivera, I'm Sheriff Wade Thompson, Cascade County." The man held out a large hand. His grip was strong but a little sweaty. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I have something urgent about your sister's case." The sheriff's uniform was neat, his badge shiny. He looked like he knew his job, but something in his pale blue eyes seemed off, a nervousness that didn't match his strong appearance. "Come in, Sheriff." Marcus stepped aside, seeing Thompson's eyes quickly look around the room, stopping on the case files and gun. Thompson took off his hat. "I'll get straight to it. I have a secret source who says they have information about Agent Rivera. Alina, your sister." Marcus's heart beat faster. "What kind of information? That's the problem." Thompson shifted his weight. "This person has had bad experiences with federal agents. They specifically asked to talk only with Elena's family member, not in any official DEA. They're nervy, ready to run. Where is this source now? That's why I'm here. They're willing to meet, but only at a place they choose, somewhere private." Thompson's phone buzzed, and he looked at it quickly. "I know it's not normal, but the information could be very valuable." Marcus studied the sheriff. "What exactly did this source tell you? Why come forward now, after 8 years?" "The discovery at the cave has people talking," Thompson said, his words coming faster. "Old secrets tend to come out when bodies show up. Look, I understand your doubt, but I was part of the first search. I want answers as much as you do." "I appreciate that, Sheriff. Tell me what proof was found today." "I was only there for a bit." Thompson leaned forward. "That's what I was hoping you could tell me. My department's been left out. What were the bodies like? Any personal items?" "2 of the victims haven't been identified. Sarah Collins was confirmed through dental records and the truck." Thompson pushed. "I heard something about it being in surprisingly good shape." The crime scene team must have mentioned their timeline. Warning bells rang in Marcus's mind. The sheriff's questions were too specific, too focused on details of the evidence. "They're still working the scene. Why do you ask? Just trying to get the whole picture." Thompson wiped his forehead. "And Alina, ... was her body among those found?" There it was, a flash of something in Thompson's eyes when Marcus shook his head. Relief. It was there and gone so fast Marcus almost thought he imagined it. "No, Alina wasn't in the cave," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm, watching the sheriff. "That's..." Thompson paused. "Well, that leaves hope she might have survived. All the more reason to meet with my source." "Tell me, Sheriff, will the crime scene team search a wider area, maybe with ground-penetrating radar?" Thompson's answer came too fast, too detailed. "Standard rules would be to search the grid area, use cadaver dogs, GPR units. The D will probably get heat-sensing drones. Check nearby water, look at animal trails, ... Double quotes, Marcus nodded slowly. "Few county sheriffs could list deep procedures with such detail. You seem to know a lot about federal investigations." "I've worked with your agency before," Thompson said, but his eyes looked away. "Of course." Marcus stood up, a clear sign the talk was over. "I'll need to clear any meeting with my boss first." "Time is a factor here," Thompson insisted, getting up too. "My source won't wait long. They're scared, Agent Rivera. Give me 2 hours. I'll contact you through official ways." Thompson's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 2 hours. After that, I can't promise they'll still be willing to talk. He walked to the door, then stopped. "Agent Rivera, I know what it's like to lose someone. I had a sister too, died in a car crash. The not knowing, that would be even worse." The words felt fake, like a performance. Marcus kept a thankful look on his face until the door closed, then immediately went to the window. He watched Thompson sit in his patrol car for a few minutes, making what looked like an angry phone call before finally leaving. Every gut feeling Marcus had from 15 years with the D screamed danger. Thompson's specific questions, his detailed knowledge, the perfectly timed appearance of a source. It was all too suspicious. But if there was even a tiny chance the sheriff had real information about Alina, Marcus couldn't ignore it. He picked up his phone to call Director Thornton, then stopped. Official ways meant official messages, and Thompson would be told about any federal questions. If the sheriff was involved, telling him would only give him time to hide his tracks. Marcus picked up his gun, checked it, and put it in his holster. Whatever Thompson was really up to, one thing was clear. The sheriff knew more about Elena's disappearance than he should, and his barely hidden relief at learning Elena's body wasn't in the cave suggested that knowledge was worth protecting. The D field office was on the 15th floor of a federal building in downtown Seattle, with a wide view of Elliott Bay that Marcus barely saw as he went through security at 2 p.m. His mind was filled with what Thompson's visit meant. Replaying every small look, every too specific question, every moment of relief when he learned Elena's body hadn't been found. The records room was quiet. Marcus pulled up the digital files first, his fingers moving fast as he opened the original missing persons report, the one he'd filed himself 8 years ago. Reading his own words brought back the pure panic of those first days. But it was Sheriff Thompson's part in the investigation that he focused on now. The sheriff had filed his first report the morning after Alina and Sarah disappeared. A very detailed report for someone who said he was off duty the night before. Marcus read Thompson's report with new eyes, his doubts becoming clear with each line. Based on my deep knowledge of the local area, Thompson had written, I suggest focusing search efforts on these parts. What followed was a carefully made search map that Marcus now saw created a path of unsearched land along the Canadian border. Thompson had given reasonable-sounding excuses for each part he left out. This area was too steep. That part flooded in certain seasons. Another area was private property with security. Marcus pulled up satellite pictures from 8 years ago and compared them to Thompson's suggestions. The impassable land showed clear trails. The flooded parts were dry in the pictures from that October. And the secured private property looked like old abandoned buildings with no fences or security. He looked deeper and found a report that made him feel sick. James Carver, a game warden with 30 years of experience, had filed a different report just 2 days after Thompson's. Carver noted clear paths through the exact areas Thompson had said couldn't be crossed. The warden had even mentioned recent tire tracks that didn't look like they were from logging trucks near the cave system. Yet somehow, Carver's report had been hidden in extra files never added to the main investigation. Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up missing person files for Cascade County. He looked at the last 10 years, focusing on Thompson's patrol areas. The results made him lean back, a chill running down his spine. 17 missing person cases along Thompson's regular routes. The state average for similar country areas was 4 to 5 over the same time. The victims showed a disturbing similarity. Mostly young women, many of them immigrants or traveling alone. People whose disappearances might not cause big searches right away. Maria Gonzalez, 28, an immigrant without papers, last seen hitchhiking. Ashley Chen, 19, a college student whose car broke down. Natasha Volkov, 24, a Russian tourist who disappeared while hiking alone. Case after case, all with Thompson's signature on the report, likely left on their own. Probably crossed the border to avoid immigration, no proof of a crime. The sheriff had basically stopped any real investigations with his strong reports. And because it was complicated who was in charge, federal agents almost never questioned the local police reports. Marcus got into the shared police database and pulled Thompson's work logs from October 8 years ago. The official record showed normal patrols, but when Marcus checked them against gas receipts from the county, he found a big difference. Thompson's logged patrols should have used about 80 miles worth of gas. The receipt showed he'd used enough for 240 miles, 3 times the distance. Where had Thompson driven that night? The answer came from an unexpected place, hidden in the extra files of the original investigation. Marcus found raw cell tower data that had been collected but never looked at. It seemed no one had thought to check where Thompson's phone had been. Marcus put the data into mapping software, watching as Thompson's movements showed he was guilty. At 11:47 p.m., about 2 hours after Elena's last check-in, Thompson's phone pinged a tower near the cave system, the same cave where the truck was just found. He stayed in that area for over an hour. Then, at 2:15 a.m., the signals showed him heading north toward the Canadian border before coming back to town. The sheriff had been at the crime scene the night Elena and Sarah disappeared. He'd spent a lot of time there, hours before any missing person report was filed, before anyone except their killer should have known something was wrong. Marcus felt the weight of the proof, a crooked sheriff helping smugglers, covering up disappearances, and quite possibly involved in the murder of 2 federal agents. But knowing and proving were different, especially when accusing another police officer. He understood now why he couldn't report this through official ways yet. The police community was very connected. Any question about Thompson would set off alarms. The sheriff would know in minutes he was being investigated. Proof would disappear. Witnesses would vanish or take back their stories. And any chance of finding out what really happened to Elena would be gone. Marcus started copying files to a protected external drive, financial records showing Thompson living much better than a county sheriff should. Property records showing he owned 3 rental houses and a boat, all bought with cash and travel. Records showing many trips to Vancouver and Seattle. It's always coming back through quiet border crossings instead of official ones. The picture was of a man who had become crooked years ago, who had turned his job into a money-making business built on the suffering of others. But had he gone from helping smugglers to murder? Had Elena and Sarah found his operation, forcing him to kill them? Marcus saved the last files as his phone buzzed. It was Thompson texting from his personal number. Source agreed to meet 5 p.m. Old Brackenridge Mill off Forest Road 47. Come alone or they won't show. The place was perfect for a surprise attack, far away with only one road in and no cell service. If Thompson wanted to kill a federal agent who was getting too close, he couldn't have picked a better spot. But it was also the kind of place where Elena might have been held, might have died, or might still be waiting. Marcus closed the files and put the protected drive in his pocket. He had 4 damning pieces of proof: Thompson's presence at the crime scene, his organized misdirection of the search, the pattern of disappearances in his area, and his unexplained wealth. It wasn't enough to convict him, maybe not even to arrest him, but it was enough to know he was dealing with a killer. The question now was whether he could use that knowledge to find Elena without becoming Thompson's next victim. The paperwork at the D motor pool took less than 5 minutes, but 2. Marcus, every second felt like a year. He chose a gray Honda Accord with dark windows and normal license plates, the kind of car that would fit in with traffic. His hands were steady as he signed the form, but his mind was racing with what he had found in the files. At 3:25 p.m., Marcus parked across from the Cascade County Sheriff's Office. He'd changed into normal clothes, jeans, a jacket, and a baseball cap. The protected drive with Thompson's files was in his inner pocket, a digital backup he hoped he wouldn't need. Thompson came out of the building at 3:32 p.m. He moved with a purpose, looking around the parking lot like someone who expected to be watched. Marcus let 2 cars go before following, keeping 3 cars between them. The sheriff's patrol car turned north, then onto a series of quiet logging roads. Marcus's suspicions grew as Thompson drove in a way meant to spot anyone following him. Unnecessary turns, changing speeds, pulling over to make cars pass. Twice, Marcus had to take side roads, using his knowledge of the area to guess Thompson's path and see him again. The dance went on for 20 minutes, with Thompson's car kicking up dust on the gravel roads. The sheriff was heading toward the Canadian border into the same wild area where Alina and Sarah had disappeared. Thompson finally turned onto a rough road, marked only by a rusted chain that had been recently cut. Marcus couldn't follow without being seen, so he drove past and found a hidden spot a quarter-mile ahead. He grabbed his binoculars and phone, then walked through the forest, circling back toward where Thompson went. The trees opened up to a clearing with the skeleton of the Brackenridge lumber mill. The site showed signs of recent use: fresh tire tracks, new locks on the gate, and security cameras. Someone had started using this remote place for secret activities. Marcus found a high spot behind a huge fallen tree, a natural hiding place with a clear view. Through his binoculars, he watched Thompson park near 2 pickup trucks and a van with British Columbia plates. The sheriff checked his gun before walking up to 3 men. Recognition hit Marcus hard. He knew these faces from D-Files. Victor Clav, suspected of running drugs. Chen Wei, linked to human trafficking. And Robert Bobby Tanner, a local who had been questioned but never charged in smuggling cases. The 3 men who always seemed to avoid police. Now, Marcus understood why. Thompson greeted the men like old friends. Clav gave him a thick envelope, which Thompson took and counted. Marcus managed to get several photos with his phone, blurry but clear enough to identify everyone. The wind shifted, carrying bits of conversation. Marcus strained to hear. More federal agents since the cave discovery, Thompson was saying. They'll search a wider area within days. Then we move everything tonight, Clav replied. The northern warehouse first. Chen Wei waved his hand angrily. This is too fast. We have products coming, buyers waiting. Would you rather explain to buyers or to federal agents? Thompson cut in. I'll handle the cleanup at the northern site, same as I did 8 years ago. It's a casual mention of 8 years ago, when Alina disappeared, sent ice through Marcus's veins. He made himself stay still and keep recording, despite his rage. What about the bodies in the cave? Tanner asked, nervously. If they identify the other 2, double quotes, they won't, Thompson said. Maria and her daughter aren't in any important databases. Just 2 more illegal immigrants who disappeared crossing the border. Maria and her daughter. Marcus noted the names, thinking of the 2 unidentified bodies. Thompson pulled out his phone. Yeah, it's me. We have a problem. The Rivera brother is asking questions. Marcus's name on the sheriff's lips felt like a target being painted on him. He's too interested in the evidence. How much do you think the D guy really knows about what happened to his sister? Drop the weapon. Fed, 1 ordered. Marcus tried to turn his gun toward the new threat, but a rifle hit him in the head. Stars exploded in his vision as he fell to his knees. His gun was kicked away. Through blurry vision, Marcus saw Thompson standing over him, gun drawn. You should have left this alone, Rivera. You could have lived with not knowing. Now you'll die just like your sister did, fighting for nothing, saving no one. The darkness rushing up to meet Marcus felt almost kind compared to the weight of what Thompson had said. Alina had suffered for 2 months, had fought and planned, and had died alone, burned to ash, erased from the world except in the memories of her killers. As he passed out, Marcus heard Thompson telling the men to move him somewhere else. But he also heard something else. Engines getting louder, closer than Thompson thought. Chen's team was following his trail. The last thing he heard before he blacked out was Thompson's curse, the sheriff finally realizing that Marcus hadn't come alone. He woke up in waves, each one bringing more pain to his head. The world swayed and bounced with the rumble of an engine and the smell of oil and sweat. He was in the back of a van, hands tied behind him. Through his clearing vision, Marcus could see 2 other men, the ones who had attacked him. They sat on the van's wheel wells, rifles in their laps, talking about plans in English and Russian. Despite the pain, Marcus made himself focus, to watch, to remember. His detraining took over. The van took a sharp left, and through the front window, Marcus saw a rusted water tower. Another turn took them over an old wooden bridge. 20 minutes of watching gave him a mental map of landmarks. A burned-out gas station, a strange rock shape. A cell tower in the distance, clues that might lead rescuers to him if he lived long enough to tell them. The warehouse appeared out of the forest like a disease of metal and broken concrete. What was once a busy lumber mill was now used for something darker. Fresh tire tracks were everywhere. Security cameras covered every way in. The windows were painted black, and Marcus saw air conditioners, strange for an abandoned building, but needed for storing drugs and keeping people from suffocating. They dragged him from the van. The main warehouse door opened to a scene from Marcus's worst nightmares. The sharp, bad smell hit first. Human waste, unwashed bodies, fear and sweat. Lights showed a space split into cages by chain-link fences. Each cage held many victims, mostly young women and teenage girls. They huddled together, many with bruises and torn clothes, their eyes empty. "Mother of God," one girl whispered in Spanish as they dragged Marcus by. Others pulled back, taught to fear any new person. Along the far wall, Marcus saw at least 50 kilos of what looked like heroin, plus boxes of what was probably fentanyl. A drug packing station was in one corner. This wasn't just human trafficking. It was a full criminal business where people were just another product. Thompson was already there, arguing with a man Marcus recognized as Victor Clove. The Russian waved his hand angrily at Marcus. "This is insane, Thompson. A federal agent. You bring a federal agent here?" "We had no choice," Thompson shot back. "He was at the burial site. He knows about Elena Rivera, about the whole operation. Then we kill him now. Dump the body across the border." Wait. A new voice cut in. Chen Wei came out of an office, his face showing he was thinking hard. "First, we find out what he knows, who he told. If a D team is coming, we need to know. How much time we have?" Marcus was pushed into a strong storage room. They took his phone, gun, and badge, leaving his hands tied. Through the door's small window, Marcus could see them arguing. Thompson wanted to kill him right away. Clove worried about moving dozens of victims. Chen Wei seemed focused on getting information, mentioning something about enhanced interrogation that made Marcus's blood run cold. The guard they posted outside looked barely 20. Sweating and nervous, holding an AK-47. Marcus watched him. Seeing how he kept checking his phone, his eyes wandering to the main warehouse where others were getting victims ready. Time was short. Chen's team would reach the burial site, find Thompson's car, and see signs of a fight. But without a location, they'd have to search many possible places. The young guard was called away to help load victims. This was Marcus's chance. The storage room had metal shelves, and Marcus found a bracket with a sharp edge. He worked his zip ties against it, feeling the plastic cut into his wrists, blood making his hands slick. The pain was extreme, but necessary. After 5 minutes, the ties finally broke. Marcus quickly looked for weapons, but found only cleaning supplies. Through the window, he could see the guard's jacket on a chair, his phone in the pocket. The main warehouse was busy as the traffickers got ready to leave. Moving silently, Marcus opened the door. The jacket was 3 feet away. He grabbed the phone, turned it on, and dialed Chen's number from memory. 1 ring, 2, ... The guard was coming back. "Chen," the familiar voice answered. "Warehouse. Trafficking. Victims?" "GPS on this phone," Marcus whispered urgently, hearing footsteps. "Multiple hostages, heavy weapons." The guard came around the corner, his eyes wide with shock, seeing Marcus free with his phone. Training took over. Marcus grabbed a metal pipe from the shelf and swung hard, hitting the young man in the head. The guard fell, his gun clattering. On the floor, Marcus snatched the AK-47. He could hear shouting from the main warehouse. Through the doorway, he could see traffickers pushing victims toward trucks. The math was grim. One agent with a borrowed gun against at least 6 armed traffickers and dozens of innocent lives. But Marcus also heard something else, far away but getting closer. Engines, many of them, coming fast without sirens. Chen's tactical team, running dark and quiet. A trafficker appeared in the doorway, reaching for his gun. Marcus fired a controlled burst, dropping him. The warehouse exploded in shouts. "Federal agent!" Marcus yelled. "Drop your weapons!" The answer was automatic gunfire that ripped through the doorframe. But his announcement had worked. Chaos. Some traffickers ran, others took cover, and most importantly, they stopped loading victims. Marcus moved toward the cages. A teenage girl was pressed against the fence, crying. "Por favor, ayudinos," she begged. "Stay down," Marcus ordered. In Spanish, "Help is coming." "Everyone get low, away from the walls." Thompson's voice boomed across the warehouse. "Rivera, you just signed their death warrants. We'll kill every witness before your backup arrives." Marcus saw Clav moving toward the cages with his rifle, ready to kill the witnesses. Marcus broke cover, firing as he moved. Shots hit Clav in the shoulder. Return fire forced Marcus behind a concrete pillar. The warehouse's main door exploded inward. Federal agents. The tactical team poured in, weapons ready. The traffickers, caught between Marcus and the team, made quick choices. Some gave up right away, others fought. The air filled with gunpowder and loud noises. Marcus stayed low, trying to cover the victims. He saw Chen Wei trying to get around the side of the team and fired, forcing him back. Then, burning pain shot through Marcus's left arm. Through the chaos, he saw a trafficker aiming his weapon at the cages, at a young girl who couldn't have been more than 14. Without thinking, Marcus threw himself forward, shielding her with his body as the gun fired. He felt the hit in his vest, bruising his ribs but stopping the bullet. Clear, suspect down. Manek. The team's calls showed the fight was ending. Marcus stayed over the girl until he heard Chen's voice right above him. "Jesus, Marcus, you're hit." The victims, Marcus gasped, rolling aside. "Check the victims first." The girl he'd shielded was sobbing, holding his good hand, whispering, "Gracias," over and over. Around them, federal agents were cutting locks, opening cages, calling for more medical help. The warehouse that had been a place of horror was becoming a rescue operation. Thompson was on the ground in cuffs, blood coming from a leg wound. Clav was unconscious, being treated by medics. Chen Wei hadn't survived. In total, 3 traffickers were dead, 4 were arrested. More importantly, Marcus counted 32 victims being led to safety. 32 lives that would go on because Elena's investigation, even after her death, had finally paid off. As a medic worked on his arm, Marcus watched the victims being wrapped in blankets and given water. "This is just one site," Thompson said from where he lay, his voice bitter. "You have no idea how deep this goes. Then you'd better start talking." Chen cut in, standing over him. "Because your only chance at not getting a death sentence is full cooperation." Marcus closed his eyes, letting the medic work. They'd saved these victims, stopped this operation, but Elena was still gone. Still, he could almost hear his sister's voice in the warehouse. She would have been proud of this moment, even if she couldn't share it. The warehouse looked like a battlefield medical center. Medics moved between victims while federal agents worked the scene. Marcus sat on the back of an ambulance, wincing as a medic cleaned his arm wound. Around him, rescued victims were being treated and comforted. "Sir, we really need to take you to a hospital for proper treatment," the paramedic said. "No Marcus's." Voice was raw. "Not yet." Chen walked up, understanding on his face. He knew when an agent needed an end to the story more than medical care. The crime scene team is going back to the burial site. Dr. Lindstrom is on her way with ground penetrating radar. Thompson said she wasn't there. Said they burned her. Thompson says a lot of things, Chen replied gently. But he was digging for something. Let's find out what. The paramedic looked between them. Chen made a deal. Medics would go with them. Marcus would get basic care on the way. And he'd go to the hospital after they checked the site. The line of cars moved through the darkness. Thompson was in an armored truck. The other surviving traffickers were in separate cars. Marcus rode with Chen, a medic checking his condition while he stared at the dark forest. The clearing looked different under the harsh lights. Thompson's patrol car was still there, the half-dug hole a dark mark in the ground. Dr. Lindstrom was already setting up equipment. "Agent Rivera, you should be in a hospital. Please," Marcus said simply. She nodded, understanding. "We're picking up." Metal objects about 4 feet down, like tactical gear. The way the dirt was moved suggests it was buried about 8 years ago, not burned, not destroyed. Thompson had lied about that one last thing. Marcus watched, supported by Chen, as the team started carefully digging. The earth gave up its secrets. First, they found a tactical vest with D letters still visible. Then, with great care, the remains of Special Agent Elena Rivera were brought out into the night. Marcus fell to his knees beside the grave, his hurt arm forgotten, tears flowing as he looked at what was left of his sister. "Elena," he whispered, reaching out but not touching. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm so sorry." Dr. Lindstrom knelt beside him, her professional look softened by kindness. "The bones show she was held captive for a long time. Healed broken bones from being tortured, ... Wounds on her hands from fighting. But Marcus, look here." She pointed to marks on the ribs, single gunshot wound to the back of the head. It would have been instant, a small kindness in a sea of cruelty. When they finally decided to kill her, at least it had been fast. Chen's phone buzzed. "Thompson's talking, says he wants to make a deal." "No deals," Marcus said harshly. "He's offering locations of other burial sites, names of crooked officials, the whole network. The prosecutor will make that call, not us." Chen paused. "But, Marcus, he's also explaining about Elena, about what she hid." The digging went on, and under Elena's remains, they found what Thompson had been desperate to find, a plastic-wrapped bundle. Inside were photos of the trafficking operation, papers stolen from Thompson's office, and a blood-stained piece of cloth with Elena's handwriting. "Elena Rivera, D Special Agent, badge number 3847. Taken alive October 15th. Sarah Collins murdered." At scene, Sheriff Wade Thompson involved. Trafficking operation, warehouse 3 miles north of Bracken Ridge Mill. They're moving people and drugs. Please tell Marcus I fought. Tell him I never gave them anything real. Tell him I'm sorry. Marcus held the note, his sister's last words breaking something inside him. She had said sorry after 2 months of torture, after keeping secrets safe and gathering evidence while a prisoner. She had said sorry as if she had failed. She saved them, Marcus said, looking at the note, then at the ambulance lights carrying victims to safety. 32 people are alive tonight because she never gave up. Thompson's full confession came over the next few hours from his hospital bed as he tried to avoid the death penalty. The trafficking ring had been going for over a decade. Thompson had been brought in early because of his gambling debts. Elena Rivera was never supposed to be there. Thompson admitted. She went off her patrol path, following a hunch, and found our transfer site by accident. Collins went for her radio right away. Calf didn't wait. But Rivera, she tried to back away to calm things down. A professional to the end. The questioning revealed the whole story. 2 other crooked officials. In Border Patrol, a network of safe houses and paths that changed based on police patterns. The 2 unidentified bodies in the cave were confirmed as Maria Gonzalez and her 9-year-old daughter, Anna, who died from drug overdoses when they tried to escape. We dumped the truck 6 months ago, Thompson explained. The first hiding spot was being built on. Figured the cave would hold it until we could destroy it. 5 more burial sites were found, each with victims who had fought back or become a problem. Families who had waited years for news would finally have answers. As the sun came up over the forest, Elena's remains were carefully removed for a proper burial. Marcus stayed there the whole time, speaking quietly to his sister, telling her about their parents, about the lives she'd saved, about how her death had meaning. The medics checked on him, worried about his condition. "You ready?" Chen asked gently as the coroner's van got ready to leave. Marcus took one last look at the clearing where his sister had been hidden for 8 years, where she'd used her last moments to hide evidence that would destroy her killers, where Thompson had thought darkness could bury the truth forever. She fought, Marcus said. Elena's note carefully folded in his pocket. Even at the end, even when she knew she would die, she fought to leave something behind, to save others. He finally let the paramedics take care of him, letting them lead him to an ambulance. As they drove toward the hospital, Marcus watched the sun rise over the Washington forest. Behind them, crime scene tape marked places of horror. Ahead, 32. Survivors were starting their journey back to their lives. Elena was gone, had been gone for 8 years. But her drive to protect and serve had lived on after her, had waited buried in the dirt until her little brother could finish what she'd started. Thompson would die in prison. The trafficking network was broken. Lives were saved. It wasn't justice. Nothing could be after what Elena went through. But it was an end. It was the truth finally pulled into the light. It was the best Marcus could do with the time he'd been given that his sister had not.